Hello everybody, it's Foo here, and today I'm very excited to be talking to you about a criminally underrated Pokemon and my favourite fossil Pokemon, newly reintroduced with the Crown Tundra DLC. It's going to be Cradily. I can't believe that no one is talking about this Pokemon because it is so cool and it has so many new toys. It received some really unexpected but awesome buffs in Pokemon Sword and Shield that have given it a ton more viability and loads of new sets to play with. So I want to show you in this video 4 Cradily sets that are really cool and you should definitely try out. And I want to show you the best way to use it both in singles but also in VGC. I've come up with this VGC team that I'm kind of proud with. I really enjoy using it and I think it's very fun featuring Cradily. So definitely stay tuned for that. And if you enjoy this kind of content, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel and ding the bell and all that. But before we get into what's new about Cradily, just a few of the basics. So Cradily is generally quite a bulky Pokemon. It's got a really unique grass-rock typing. I didn't know this, but grass and rock are the types that have the most weaknesses. But when put together, Cradily only has 4 weaknesses, which is pretty interesting. What's also really interesting about Cradily is it has 2 awesome niche abilities. So one is Suction Cups, which prevents it from being switched out by opponents' moves like Roar and Whirlwind, which is situationally really useful, and actually one of the sets I'll show you today has that ability. And the other one is Storm Drain, which is a fantastic ability. It grants Cradily an immunity to water-type moves. If it gets hit by a water-type move, it gets a special attack boost, and it redirects water-type moves in doubles, which is so helpful for VGC, so we'll definitely be talking about that ability. So what's new for Cradily, and what are these awesome new sets that you want to try? Well, the first one that I want to talk about is Meteor Beam. Meteor Beam is a very powerful special rock-type move which takes 2 turns to use. So you charge on the first turn, you get a special attack boost on that first turn, and then you hit with the incredibly powerful attack on the following turn. What's really neat is you can use the Power Herb to avoid the charging turn so that you basically get the +1 special attack and use the super powerful move all in one turn, which is so good. Now, Cradily isn't a powerhouse, it's not the strongest user of this combination, but it can be pretty cool as a special tank because it is very bulky, it gets recovery, so you can have this really powerful rock type move that boosts your special attack, as well as some good coverage moves like Giga Drain and Earth Power. You can have recover on there as well, and bear in mind that you can have the Storm Drain ability, so if you get hit by a water type attack, your damage output will go up even further. Prior to Sword and Shield, Cradily's most powerful special rock type move was Ancient Power, which is not very powerful at all. In fact, Meteor Beam is actually double the power of Ancient Power, which is insane, so that is a huge step up for Cradily. And you have to consider Dynamaxing, and the max rockfall based off Meteor Beam will be much more powerful. So this is a really cool option for Cradily. I definitely think it's more viable in singles, and I want to show you this in action. So in this battle, I'm using this Meteor Beam set, which is basically just max HP, max special attack. If you want to use a more offensive Cradily set, you need to invest in its attacking stats because it is generally quite weak. It's like got middling attacking stats. If you invest, then they're not awful, but it's better as like a bulky tank Pokemon, so you want max HP and max special attack. Now my opponent leads with a Charizard, and I take that out with my Landorus, and then they bring in their Tapu Fini, and I'm definitely expecting a water type move here. I think a lot of people don't realize that Cradily gets Storm Drain, so that's pretty good. It goes in your advantage because not many people are using Cradily at the moment. So you can switch that straight in and just hope that the opponent goes for a water type attack. They go for a waterfall, so maybe they were watching my previous video about physical Tapu Fini, which is really cool and you should watch that. They then follow up with the Carmine though, so I definitely don't think that they're using Choice Band Tapu Fini because that is not a good set. So anyway, they're setting up Carmines. I actually opt to go for the Meteor Beam this turn, despite having super effective grass type moves because I did want that extra special attack boost. And we can see how much damage this is going to do to a +1 defense Tapu Fini, obviously a very bulky Pokemon, base 130 special defense is insane, but that beautiful animation is going to give us a very nice amount of damage on the Tapu Fini, and also we now can go for our +2 special attack grass type moves. The Tapu Fini now goes for Nature's Madness, which is weird because obviously Carmine doesn't boost the power, but also annoying because it probably would have done more damage than a special move coming out from it, because Cradily has pretty good special bulk. Anyway, we can take out the Tapu Fini with a Giga Drain, and that's nice because it can give us a little bit of recovery there. We've got the leftovers too, which can help too. Now the opponent switches into their Zapdos. We've taken some damage, but I'm hoping that we can take on this Zapdos regardless, because we do have type advantage with the rock typing. The Zapdos is going to Dynamax, very scary, but we have Dynamax too, so we can go for that and then go for our really powerful Max Rockfall based off Meteor Beam, as long as we can survive some attacks. But I don't see that the Zapdos, it's not too much of a threat really. It doesn't have any super effective moves to my knowledge, so I think we should be okay here, unless it's going for Steel Wing. That would be weird though. No, it goes for Airstream, and we can take that, although it does look like a 2-hit KO, which is a bit of a shame. So we have to hope that this +2 special attack Max Rockfall can take out the Zapdos. Is that the case? It's not quite the case. I mean, the Cradily it's good, but it's not quite that strong. We do set up the Sand though, which is nice, and maybe Sand Chip can take it out. It doesn't quite take out the Zapdos. However, because we have set up the Sand, this next Max Airstream is not going to KO because Cradily is a rock type and we get a special defense boost in the Sand. And that is a really nice thing about Dynamax Cradily, is that these rock falls, not only are they going to give you more damage, they are also going to set up the Sand, get you some chip on the opponent, and provide you with a special defense boost. So your special defense goes through the roof, and this is such a bulky Pokemon right now. So we can take out the Zapdos there. So you can see that Cradily has some viability in some of these 3v3 battles. And yeah, I think that Meteor Beam is a really nice addition to Cradily's arsenal. You can use it in a much more offensive way than you ever could before. So that is really cool, and I love to see it. Now let's move on to the next buff, which I have talked about in a previous video, and that is going to be Power Whip. Now, Power Whip is a very powerful grass physical move. Previously, Cradily had Seed Bomb, which is a lot less powerful. What's neat about this is that Cradily now has access to some decent physical moves. It's got Stone Edge as its stab rock type move, and also Earthquake, which is a great, quite high power coverage move. And considering that Cradily's attack and special attack stats are the same, but yeah, it got me thinking with the addition of Power Whip, could we try a physical attacking Cradily? And so I decided to try out a choice band Cradily set, and actually it was way more effective than I could have expected. It actually did a lot of work, and I think it's that combination of the unique typing, the Storm Drain water immunity, as well as enemies just not expecting this kind of damage output and the coverage from Cradily, that it allowed it to do a lot of damage, and it was really, really fun to use. Again, I think this is more viable in the single setting. Choice band Cradily in doubles I think would be a lot harder to pull off, but I want to show you this next battle because it was just really, really fun to do. So my opponent's going to lead off with a Regieleki, and Cradily has a really good matchup against Regieleki because it resists all the electric moves that Regieleki has, and they just won't do much damage at all. So in this matchup, my opponent just doesn't respect Cradily at all, I think, and they switch into Togekiss, maybe expecting a grass type move, but I just go straight for the Stone Edge. I get a crit. I actually don't think that crit would matter because I'm a choice banded Cradily, so I think that would have KO'd regardless. And yeah, you really need to start respecting Cradily right now because that was not okay. Now I'm going to switch into my Dracovish. I didn't really have a better switch in, as my opponent reveals that they are also memeing as they go for a gunk shot with their Toxapex that actually does a decent amount of damage, considering Toxapex actually has bad attacking stats. Cradily has middling attacking stats. Toxapex has bad attacking stats. I go for a Psychic Fangs, it doesn't KO, and we see here that the Toxapex goes for another gunk shot and they get a critical hit. I think that's really interesting because it probably means their Toxapex is merciless. With that ability, you always crit poison Pokemon, and they managed to poison my Dracovish with Gunk Shot the previous turn. So that is really cool. Props to my opponent for trying something like that. However, I can now bring back in my Choice Band Cradily, and I know that they've only got Toxapex and Regieleki left, so I can go for some Choice Banded Earthquakes and see how we go from there. Let's see if the Toxapex can survive this one. now that it's got some black sludge recovery. It actually has pin missile and it outspeeds me because I'm like minimum speed. So that's good if you are going up against Trick Room, like you're as slow as possible. But in this situation, it allows a Toxopex to get like almost 50% damage on my Cradily, which I was not happy about. I love that earthquake animation though. I love how Cradily like bops its head onto the floor. Fantastic. We do take out the Toxopex. Now all the opponent has left is the Regieleki. So I want to see how much damage this Regieleki can do to us, considering that they generally don't run much outside of their electric type moves because they've got very poor coverage. They're actually going to Dynamax. I mean, with a transistor boost, this electric type move might do quite a lot of damage, but I'm hoping that my Cradily might be able to hang on, and with a choice band, we'll do a ton of damage to the Regieleki. I actually choose not to Dynamax here, as they show they have max Rockfall, which obviously I don't resist, and it does a ton of damage, so it looks like it's going to be a 2-8 KO, which is a shame. Although, it's a critical hit, and they've just set up Sand, which has boosted my special defense. I go for an Earthquake, and I do way over half of its HP. So on this following turn, after the Sandstorm chip, I just decide to stay in. I don't click the Dynamax button, because I know with the Sandstorm boost, I can actually survive another Max Rockfall and take out the Regieleki with another choice-banded Earthquake from there. So if anyone ever tells you that Cradily can't be a choice-banned wall breaker, then just tell them that they're wrong, because this thing is super strong. So that's just some silly memery trying out choice banded Cradily now that it does get the power whip. For the final buff, this one is definitely the most pivotal and the one that gives Cradily the most viability and potential. I was so excited when I found out that Cradily learned this move, and it's not a TM, it's not a TR. No one foresaw this with like the Pokemon Home data mines that came out before the Crown Tundra DLC was even out. We only found this out when the Crown Tundra dropped, and that is Cradily now learns Leech Seed, which is a move that it should have learned right from the beginning. I don't know why it hasn't learned this move so far, but it's so fantastic for Cradily considering that it's a really bulky grass type and it's got a niche because of its typing and its Storm Drain ability. This gives Cradily so much viability, and there are two sets that I want to showcase this with. The first one is a curse set. I already said about the Suction Cups ability, which prevents you from being switched out by the opponent. That's great if you want to boost your stats, because obviously with stat boosting, if your opponent switches you out, you lose all of those stat boosts. So the ability prevents that. Curse boosts your attack and defense, making you bulkier and more powerful. So if you make a specially defensive Cradily with this move, and then you've got Recover, you've got Leech Seed to give you more chances of setup by having like Leech Seed and Leftovers recovery each turn. You're getting bulkier with the Curse. I think it's really cool. You've only got Rock Slide to hit things with, so that's a little bit of an issue. Your damage output might not be great against things that resist, but with the Leech Seed passive damage, you'll be chipping away at them anyway, so you should be able to win the war of attrition. So I wanted to showcase this battle, which kind of shows off what I'm attempting with this set. My opponent is going to lead off with a Cherish Ball Pokemon fan, Shiny Tapu Fini. Okay, so we lead off with a Cinderace, which is a really bad matchup. I mean, I could have Gunk Shot, but I don't have Gunk Shot, so it's a bad matchup. So I'm going to have to switch out of my Cinderace here, and I'm going to go straight into my Cradily. Bearing in mind that I don't have Storm Drain on this set, I've got the Suction Cups because I want to prevent that switching out. So I am going to take some damage regardless of what move they go for. They go for the Surf. But as I said, you want to build these curse sets very specially bulky. So my Cradily takes that move really, really well. And with the Leftovers recovery, I'm not too worried about taking a little bit of damage like that. Now my opponent switches into their great friend, Shiny Kartana. Okay. So yeah, this is a bad Pokemon for Cradily. I wanted to showcase this just to let you know that, like, yeah, Kartana, it basically, you can't do anything to it, and it's a really scary Pokemon. I actually hard switch into my Cinderace, which is a risky play, but I was predicting something like a Steel Spike, or, well, maybe a Smart Strike or a Steel Spike. They do commit to the Dynamax. Obviously, a steel type move would have been super effective against Cradily, which is why I predicted that. And I'm hoping that my Cinderace can survive one hit and then be able to get a fire type attack off the next turn. I'm not sure if Pyro Ball would KO after a defense boost. I'm hoping it would, but I'm not sure, depending on how much bulk the Kartana has. But they actually end up going for the Max Knuckle, which is fine because I can survive that. It's a slightly weaker Max move. And that means that I still outspeed this next turn. I was concerned if they go for Max Airstream, I was in a lot of trouble. But they've committed their Dynamax, and because they didn't boost their defense, I'm quite happy just going for a Pyro Ball, taking out the Kartana, and yeah, that was pretty great because it means that I still have my Dynamax. They've lost theirs. I have a basically redundant Cinderace because it's quite low health, but it's still worth saving. I've got Sucker Punch on there, so it might be useful later in the battle. But I'm going to go straight into my Cradily here. We saw how much damage the Tapu Fini was doing, which really wasn't very much at all. They go for another Surf. Doesn't even take me down to half health, and after Leftovers recovery, I'm looking pretty good. So again, I'm just going to try for the Leech Seed because I don't think my opponent had any other grass types. So this Leech Seed should help me get some recovery. My opponent actually switches into the living legend, Shiny Zapdos. Who'd have thought? But that's okay because we've already seen that Cradily generally has a reasonable matchup against Zapdos, and especially considering this Zapdos can't Dynamax, so I should be okay here. I've got the Leech Seed up, and with the Leftovers recovery, I'm almost back at full health right now. So they've only got Tapu Fini and this Zapdos, which is very good matchup for my Cradily. And now I'm in a position where I can start setting up curses because, yeah, basically they won't have the damage output. Now that actually did a reasonable amount of damage, and they did get the Confusion, which is probably their win condition at this stage. I opt to go for the Recover on the first turn because I knew I'd be taking some damage, and I wanted to make sure that I didn't put myself in like a range where I could be critted or something like that. But yeah, with the Leech Seed recovery, we're chipping away at the Zapdos, and we're looking okay. If they were Life Orb, they would have been doing a lot more damage, but they're Leftovers, so that's okay. They actually missed their next Hurricane, and Hurricane's great if you're going to Dynamax your Zapdos, but if you're not, the chance of missing is pretty scary. And now, as I said, I can start setting up the curses because I will need to boost my damage output. I don't have any attack investment here, so I need to get some curses up, and then I can just click the button, Dynamax, and go for those Max Rock Falls. Once I've gone for one Max Rock Fall, I will have set up the Sand, I'll have boosted my special defense, and there will be nothing that Zapdos or the Tapu Fini can do to me. So I just go for one more curse, and then I'll be able to, yeah, just Max Rock Fall my way through this. That's the plan anyway. So we're getting lots of nice chip on the Zapdos. They keep missing their Hurricanes, and that's working in my favor, although I wouldn't have taken much damage anyway. But yeah, on this following turn, I'm going to click the button. We're going to go for the Dynamax and the Max Rockfall, and the battle is actually cancelled, which is disappointing because we don't see the end of that, but I mean, it would have taken some time to break through those anyway. You can basically see the thought and the theory behind that set is that you can create your opportunities to set up with Leftovers and Leech Seed. The opponent just won't be able to do enough damage, and things like Raw Hippowdon or Whirlwind Hippowdon won't be able to get rid of your stats. So it's a really cool set and you should try it out. The last one that I want to talk to you about is the VGC Cradily team that I've put together and that I'm really proud of. I think it's really cool. And yeah, this is it. So the Cradily is really interesting. It's a Storm Drain Cradily, and it's mixed. So it's got a lot of special defense investment and some defense investments, some attack investment, really, really bulky. The idea is that it's generally a late game win condition. You can go for the Leech Seeds to stall out the opponent. It also really helps with Sun matchups, because if you Dynamax, you can one-hit KO Charizard with a Max Rockfall. You can obviously change weather against the Sun matchups by going for the Max Rockfall and setting up Sand. It's super effective against the fire types, and obviously with the grass types, they can't Sleep Powder Cradily because it's a grass type itself, which is really cool. So it's a very good matchup against the Sun teams, and it's got the Storm Drain ability, which is fantastic synergy with Rotom Heat. Rotom Heat and Cradily go so well together because the opponent, if they want to go for water type damage on Rotom Heat, they'll give your Cradily a special attack boost, and that's why I've got Giga Drain on here because I want the special attack boosts to boost the Giga Drain's power, whereas you have to have Rock Slide. Rock Slide is nice for spread damage, but also it does more damage to a lot of the fire types that are slightly more specially bulky, not Torkoal, but Charizard and stuff. You have to have Rock Slide to be able to take them out. The synergy goes both ways as well, because as I've said, Cradily hates the steel types. Cradily hates the steel types, so the Celesteela and the Kartana, it really can't deal with them very well. And also Glastria, and Rotom Heat deals with them super well. Landorus is also there because it also benefits from the Storm Drain protection, but also helps out Cradily with the Urshifu matchups. So this is the team, definitely try it out if you want to. I wanted to showcase one particular battle that was super fun. And this one's kind of crazy because the matchup maybe seems a little bit awkward at first, considering that I really like to Dynamax my Rotom Heat. We're going up against a Rain team. And yeah, obviously Rotom Heat against lots of water types generally isn't a good idea, but with the Cradily protection, maybe it will do okay. So my opponent's got a Escavalier and a Pelipper on the first turn. The Drizzle obviously is going to be a slight issue for Rotom because it does mean that its fire type moves aren't going to do so much damage. So there's a chance that this Escavalier could survive, especially if it Dynamaxes. I don't think that I would be able to take it out. What I'm going to do on this first turn is just switch my Tapu Fini straight out, go right into my shiny Cradily that I bred myself. It's my pride and joy, this massive pink sea monster, absolutely beautiful. So, and I'm also going to commit my Dynamax turn 1 with my Rotom Heat against the Rain team because I am just, I don't know, maybe I was kind of crazy, but I feel like with my Cradily there to protect the Rotom, this was a reasonable play to make. On the first turn, the Pelipper goes for the Scald, and obviously I can drink that up, get my special attack boost on my Cradily, powering up my future Giga Drains, which will be really nice, and I can go for Max Flare with my Rotom into the Escavalier. It actually has the Occa Berry, so in the Rain with the Occa Berry, I'm not going to be able to take it out. It does look like a 2-hit KO, but it's got rid of its berry anyway, so I'll be able to KO it with the next Max Flare regardless. But yeah, this is a decent position to be in, and they go for the Razor Shell with the Escavalier, which is a really cool tech, but it definitely doesn't work out this turn because of the Storm Drain ability. So good. So Cradily is looking pretty threatening right now because it's got +2 special attack, and yeah, it's a grass type against a Rain team, so that's pretty good. My opponent's going to U-turn out with their Pelipper to get damage on Cradily, and also to keep the Drizzle ability there so that they can set up Rain again. But that just allows me to take out the Escavalier. There's probably not much the opponent could have done about that in this situation. And I'm just going to go for the Giga Drain into the Seismitoad, which obviously at +2 special attack, that's going to decimate it. I just love my pink shiny Cradily putting in the godliest of work. So yeah, Seismitoad is down. My opponent now has 2 Pokemon left, which are going to be Kingdra and Pelipper. But what's really interesting about this position is that if they want to do any damage to my Rotom, they have to go for spread water type moves because Storm Drain can't redirect like a Muddy Water. It will still hit both of my Pokemon. So they have to go for a spread move, but that means that they wouldn't Dynamax. If they want to Dynamax, they can't go for Max Geyser because that will get redirected by Storm Drain. But then obviously they would take more damage if they don't Dynamax. So they choose to Dynamax, which is great because it means that they can't go for any like Muddy Waters or anything like that. I actually go for a Protect on my Cradily because I'm imagining that they want to prioritize taking that down because they can't do anything with their water types while Cradily is on the field. And you can see the Max Wormwind does nothing. This is a Life Orb Kingdra. Obviously I protected, and because of my Tapu Fini on turn 1, the Misty Terrain is still there, so that's down powering the Max Wormwind too. They go for the Hurricane into the Cradily slot as well, which means that I get a free Max Flare off into that Pelipper. It's not going to do too much damage, but it means that I set up the Sun again, and basically at this point I've won the Weather War. They can't go for Max Geysers while the Cradily is still alive because of Storm Drain. I just absorb it and they don't get to set up the Rain again. So that's pretty awesome. That's really cool right now. So Cradily is still looking really powerful. It's got +2 special attack and there's not much the opponent can do here. They're going for a Max Wormwind, but because of Misty Terrain and my massive special defense stat, that does nothing. It does so little damage to my Cradily, which is so great. Also, we set up the sun, so what that means, the Pelipper's Hurricane is going to miss, so that's pretty great. And I can go for a Thunderbolt with Rotom to take out the Pelipper, which at this stage maybe was the bigger threat because Hurricane Confusions could have been an issue. But I go for a Leech Seed with my Cradily here, and I miss, which isn't great. I mean, Cradily's damage output against a Dynamax Pokemon is not going to be great, even with the +2 special attack, but it would have been nice to get that guaranteed recovery from the Giga Drain, so maybe I should have done that. Now the Kingdra goes for the Max Wormwind. It doesn't quite take out my Rotom. I will be able to get my Berry. Not that it helps really here, because that is still doing too much damage for Rotom to take another hit regardless of the Berry. But the fact that Rotom survives is good, because it means that I can get an attack off with it. I can go for the Thunderbolt into the Kingdra, do a decent amount of damage, and then I can go for a Giga Drain, which does about the same amount of damage. +2 special attack Cradily is about as powerful as a Rotom, which is interesting to note. But I do get the recovery too, and I'm back at full health. So this Kingdra is not looking too happy right now. And you can see the synergy between the Rotom and the Cradily is just so good. Rotom is fantastic in this meta at the moment because of, you know, things like Glastria, because of things like the Celesteela, the Kartana. All of these things are very prevalent, and Rotom deals with them relatively well. And pairing it up with the Cradily it means that it survives a lot longer, and it means that Cradily is more of a threat to your opponent if they do want to go for those water-type moves. Now I switch into my Tapu Fini just to get the Misty Terrain up again to guarantee survival of my Cradily, and I can finish off the Kingdra with my Giga Drain. So that's basically how this works. I love the synergy so much. I wanted to show you just the end of another battle, to show you this team against like some of the more standard Pokemon, because one of the main reasons that I thought Cradily had some merit was because Tapu Fini is so common. It's on over 50% of teams right now, and if it wants to go for water type moves against either Landorus or Rotom, it has to go for the Muddy Water, so it has to give Cradily a special attack boost, which means that its Giga Drain is going to do even more damage to the Tapu Fini. So this is showing you against a team where I've stalled out their Glastria Dynamax and eventually taken it out with a Rotom Heat. Now they just have to rely on their Tapu Fini and their Dusclops to close out a battle, and my Cradily is in such a good position here. Like, they've given it a special attack boost, there's really not much they can do, and considering that I've got Leech Seed, which really helps me beat down the Dusclops too, like, this is such a good position to be in. So yeah, at this stage my opponent just snaps their switch over their leg, they rage quit, throw it across the room, and it's very vindicating because I just really like seeing that Cradily is a viable Pokemon. I've used it in a number of battles now. I've had relative success on the ladder, and it's really, really fun. It's just such a great counter to Tapu Fini because of its natural special defense. You just have to be careful of the steel types, but as I say, with this team, it's kind of built to deal with them. Anyway, the aim of this entire video was just to say that Cradily is an awesome Pokemon. It's got loads of new tools and loads of new sets that you can try out, so definitely have a play around with it. I can't say enough good things about it, and it's shiny as pink, so we love that. That's gonna be all from me. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, consider subscribing to the channel and ringing the bell, because I don't have an upload schedule as such, so if you don't want to miss an upload, definitely ring the bell, and consider following me on Twitter, link in the description. All that's left to be said is I've been Foo, you've been awesome, and hopefully see you next time. Goodbye.